We hear it quite often in Christianity, don't we? Teachers say it, preachers, we mention it to each other. I am my own worst enemy. We all kind of relate to that, right? Because it's an internal battle within us. We just kind of assume the thoughts that we battle, these are just our thoughts. These are our struggles. They come from us, and we're going to probably have to struggle with them for the rest of our lives. And then one day, as I began to read Romans 7 and 8, and I saw Paul say this startling statement. He says, when I sin, it's not even me doing it, but sin that dwells within me. He got clarity on a battle because he was beating himself up, but he realized there's something at war within me. It's not me. It's not who I am. I'm not an enemy to myself. I need to get clarity on what it is I'm really wrestling against. And so what I want to declare to you today and release you from this concept that you are your own worst enemy. You're not. And as I began to understand this, I began to separate out who I am and who I'm not. And I began to get more clarity on who God says that I am and the voices within me that war against that. And those are not me. And so what I want to do is I want to help you to understand that, number one, you are not your battles. It can be so easy to take the things that we wrestle against and we struggle with and we're working through, and we make them one with our identity. Your fears, your insecurities, the temptations that come your way, all the resistance that you feel, we put a lot of terms and labels to it. And they come in a variety of ways, right? What we can often do is we can identify who we are with the things that we wrestle. And you must realize you are not your battles. Now, the other thing I began to realize that I have an enemy. And many times I've fallen asleep at the wheel, and even being aware that this enemy's there, the battle is real, and I'm wrestling against something, but that battle is not me, and it's not you. You have an enemy, but it's not you. And today I'd like to release you from the belief that you are your own worst enemy. Because if I'm the devil, and I'm the devil's army, one of the easiest traps to get you locked into is to stir the pot of you fighting yourself. Because if you do that, you'll come under the conditioning of that. And every morning you'll wake up and the enemy doesn't even need to be there because you're battling yourself all day long. This is the rise of the inner critic. This is the rise of the inner Pharisee. Just critiquing, condemning, self-hating, self-rejecting, accusing, guilt, shame, all that stuff just warring against you, all to do what? To keep you in a status of making you an enemy to yourself. So when you look in the mirror, you're not going to like what you see. When you look in the mirror, you're not going to have a good conversation with yourself. In fact, you're going to avoid yourself. And when you do address yourself, it's harsh. It's judgmental. There's no love. There's no grace. There's no mercy. And Paul, in his journey in Romans 7 and 8, moved from a transition of realizing where the war was and then moving into the power of grace and understanding there is no condemnation in Christ Jesus. And he began to get a lens of himself that you and I need to begin to carry. But see, I had to realize that I'm not my battles. I have an enemy. It's not me. And I had to learn to get clear on who I am in Christ. This is all about identity, getting clarity on who I am, to look at the thoughts that I battle with and then go, is that really who I am? I encourage you, take every thought in your life and see yourself and take all the issues that are of the nature of sin and begin to separate it out and get a clear understanding of who you are. Those thoughts that you have where you feel bitter against the boss who fired you, you feel resentful, those thoughts aren't even you. They're not who you are. Now they want to join you. They want to become your identity. Because once you're rooted in something and it becomes who you are, you manifest it everywhere you go. Who you are is what will become the manifestation of your impact in your world. That's why I need to be aware of what God said to Adam when he said, "Who told you that?" I need to be aware of where I'm getting my identity, even my personality makeup. Even when I tell people, well, this is who I am, this is kind of how I'm wired, I need to be aware of, is that something God has said over my life? Is that something that He's put in my identity? And so this understanding helped me to realize I need to get clear on who I am, who God says that I am. I got to learn identity, and I've got to separate out the stuff that who I'm not and get a clearer perspective. And this is going to help me to see other people differently, because the stuff that comes out of them against me and against you, it's not them either. It's just the enemy working through them to come against you, to get you and the other person at war with each other. You see, understanding this gives you a lens of compassion, that even the things they did against you was the enemy within them. Now, let me say this. Does that alleviate us of responsibility? Is it kind of like, whoa, the devil made me do it, right? No, it doesn't negate responsibility. We all have our sober and vigilant responsibility to take responsibility where there's agreement, where there is a access in our thinking, where our actions don't line up with the ways of God. But there is a pathway of freedom here to understand who you are, to separate out who you're not, and get a no condemnation lens on yourself and other people around you. So you can start walking in freedom in who God made you to be. Hope this is a blessing for your life and your journey. If you want to go deeper, check out the Heart Healing Journey, and I want to encourage your life and strengthen what God is doing to awaken, heal, and transform areas of your life.